Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another very educative, informative, and of course engaging edition of Your Questions, where we attempt to answer your questions in the Islamic world from archaeology to zoology. As I like to say before the show, of course, I'm joined by one of our regular guests who would help us answer your questions, Movi Faraz. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. And welcome to the program today.
Thank you very much.
I hope you are ready to answer the questions many viewers. Thank you very much. So let's just go right to it. Let's get our first question for today.
My name is Abdulgani Rajimati from Ibadan, Nigeria. My question is, who are the jinns and are they capable of harming the human?
So, Movi, we've had the question, and it's a question that actually comes in, often in different ways. The question about the idea of jinns and whether, there's something like that out there, and whether it is capable of harming us as human beings.
Moment, sir, when we study literature of different religions and different cultures, we find this element that there is some creation that is not seen by human beings, but it is harmful to humans. And in the Islamic term, the layman would call it the jinn. However, when we go deep into the study of Islam, because Islam does not accept this notion that there is some supernatural beings that cannot be seen and are harmful to human beings, this concept is totally unfounded in Islam. Then when we study the word jinn, the etymology of this word, it comes down to mean something which is hidden, veiled or concealed. So the Holy Quran gives an example of Janna alayhi layl, when the nights covered them. This is to show the etymology of the word. Then we have this word junoon. Junoon means a person whose intellect is hidden. And the Holy Quran used the word majnoon, a person who is mad in the norm, because his sense is hidden from the sight of people. Then Jannah. Jannah means a garden, because the soil of that garden is covered by the trees, because it cannot be seen, the soil cannot be seen. So there are so many such examples. The Holy Quran says Janan. It says Jan, and Jan means a snake, because a snake is hidden from the sight of human beings. So what I'm trying to say is that the word jinn basically means something hidden. And that cannot be seen by the naked eye. And the Holy Quran uses the word jinn referring to the chieftaincy of people, because they are the elders and they are hidden from the sight of the normal human beings. And it talks about Nafaru min al-jinn, that a tribe from Syria, Nasibain, came to visit the Holy Prophet ﷺ. So the chieftaincy of this tribe has been referred to as jinn in the Holy Quran, because the chief are normally hidden from the sight of human beings. So yes, the word has been used in the Holy Quran, but it is referring to the people, the chieftaincy that was hidden from the sight of human beings. Then one other meaning of jinn is germs, these bacteria that we see around. And we find in narrations that the Holy Prophet ﷺ told his companions that before you sleep at night, you have to cover your water utensils so that the Satan or the jinn cannot enter into them. Cover your pots, for the jinn cannot open the pot. He was referring to the germs, because at night they normally enter these bacteria and the feast on the leftovers of our food. And once the Holy Prophet ﷺ told his companions that after attending the call of nature, do not use the dry bones of dead creatures to cleanse yourself, because he says this is the food of the jinn. And now scientists tell us that indeed it is the bacteria that feed on these dry bones. So because this concept of bacteria was not there in the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and he was addressing a nation to whom science was not known, so he had to come down to their level using terminologies which they use. So he used the word jinn.
So germs. Modern science was not known.
And this brings me to another point which I want to mention, and it shows that the discoveries that have been made now were known 1,400 years ago and mentioned in the Holy Quran. The Holy Quran says about the creation of the jinn, it says, وَالْجَانَّ خَلَقْنَاهُ مِنْ قَبْلُ مِنْ نَارٍ سَمُومٍ, that before the creation of human beings, we created the jinn. How did we create them? مِنْ نَارٍ سَمُومٍ, with fire that has no smoke. So this is how the creation of the jinns came about. And then the Holy Quran says, وَخَلَقَ الْجَانَّ مِن مَارِجٍ مِن نَارٍ, that we created the jinn from a flame of fire. Now, the microbiologists would tell you today that indeed before the existence of human beings were these most ancient bacteria or the archaeas, and they continue to say that these prebiotic organisms, indeed they lived before the creation of man, as the Holy Quran has mentioned. Not only this, but they fed on lightning, the cosmic rays, ultraviolet radiations. This is what they fed on. There is one scientist, Richard Dickerson, in his book Chemical Evolution.
Dixon, okay.
And Chemical Evolution and the Origin of Life. And he mentions in this book, exactly as the Holy Quran has mentioned, that these microorganisms, the bacteria, the archaeas, and the prebiotic organisms, they fed on lightning energy, the ultraviolet radiation.
And they predate humanity, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, when all of these missions go into space, what they're actually looking for is micro life as evidence of life, because they say if you find micro life, it means the planet can sustain life.
Exactly. So there are other scientists who do not agree with this, Mr. Richard, but they also believe and they accept that all these ancient bacteria that existed before the creation of human beings did so on hydrothermal vents, some on volcanoes, some on other forms of lightning, and the hot springs, they say. So what I'm trying to mention is that we have diluted this beautiful concept of science by believing that there are some creations out there that can be harmful to human beings. Then comes this...
Well, I mean, technically speaking, I mean, there's harmful bacteria. I mean, COVID-19.
Yeah.
But you mean in a spiritual sense,
in a spiritual
right?
sense.
Yes.
Then comes the question, as our brother asked, that are they harmful to human beings? And it's very unfortunate that the Muslims have devised so many different ways of earning or getting some money. And they would say that you can be possessed by the jinn. The thing is that the Holy Prophet, may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, or the companions, did they ever indulge in these activities? Did you ever see, or did we ever read about any companion that the Holy Prophet, may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, wrote some verse of the Holy Quran and dipped them in water and gave it to him? These are unfounded in Islamic history. And the Holy Quran mentions about such people that يَشْتَرُونَ بِآيَاتِ اللَّهِ ثَمَنًا قَلِيلًا, that they sell the verses of the Holy Quran for a paltry ransom, for a paltry price. So this concept of jinn is being used to take money from people. And I once read a book in which the person asked this question. He says that, why is it that the jinn possesses only the females? The women are those affected by the jinns. It is just a way of taking or seeking personal benefits out of, on the name of jinn. So as I mentioned, that it's a very beautiful scientific research that has been mentioned in the Holy Quran, but we have diluted that just for the sake of creating some fantasies.
Yes, let me get it right. So you're saying that in Islamic, literature, or in the Islamic worldview, there is nothing like a jinn in a spiritual sense that has power over human beings, and that, if we think it through scientifically, which has been, proven over generations, jinns are things that we cannot see, and they can even be bacteria, right? But can they also be attitudes in us that drive us towards particular actions?
Exactly. One other meaning of this verse is that I recited, that Allah said, I created jinn out of fire. So it is also written in our literature that fire refers to the ego of a person. So just as Satan refused to obey the commandment of Allah the Almighty, and he told Allah the Almighty, Iblis said that I am better than Adam, and God said, I created him out of fire, meaning that he had this very nature, he had this ego in him that caused him all this harm. So, and the Promised Messiah has mentioned that whatever harm you do, whatever harm is inflicted upon a person, is from his own hands. He is the one who germinated that harm for his own self. So, one thing the Holy Quran says, Inna ibadi laysa laka alayhim sultan, that Allah the Almighty is giving a challenge to the Satan, that as far as my people are concerned, you can do them no harm. So if we are really the servants of Allah the Almighty, there is nothing to fear.
Nothing can harm us.
Yes.
I mean, let me just ask the question. I mean, obviously, you've mentioned that Islam does not support the idea of, a spiritual jinn that can come to your harm. But in the Islamic worldview, we also know that life is beyond our physical human form. So can you just briefly talk about what is acknowledged in Islam as existing in the spiritual world, for instance?
The Holy Quran and the Holy Prophet ﷺ have mentioned that the human beings are one of Allah's many creations.
Okay.
And there are evidences from the Holy Quran, as today the world is trying to find some life somewhere else in different planet.
Okay.
So Islam acknowledges this fact, and it is mentioned in the Holy Quran that a time would come when Allah the Almighty would let two lives, the life of this world, the people here, meet a creation that lives somewhere else. So this is totally founded in the Holy Quran.
Okay.
But to believe that other than God Almighty, there are some other powers that have that strength to do you evil is not found. This is what I base on and what the Holy Quran bases.
So
that every good
okay.
and evil comes from Allah the Almighty. It's not from a different power somewhere that can come and cause harm to you.
So in Africa, people believe in spiritual dwarfs who can do this. So you're saying all of that concept is debunked. But in the Islamic worldview too, but I think a more direct answer to my question, so we believe in the existence of angels, for example, because it's written in the Quran, right? That which as a spiritual being. Is there any other thing that people talk about beyond angels that we know as spiritual beings also? Or within our Islamic worldview, at the spiritual level, what we acknowledge are the existence of angels?
Yeah, we also have the existence of shaitan.
Okay.
But it again comes down, as I mentioned earlier on, that it is a force within the human beings.
Okay.
It is that the edge of humans that drive them to evil.
Okay.
That has been called as shaitan or
Okay.
Satan in the English we call it Satan, and in Arabic we shaitan.
Shaitan.
What I would like to mention is that, as you mentioned, that we have this system, this concept of dwarfs and other witches. This concept was also found in Europe when we go back to the 16th, 17th century. And it's very horrific when you read what they did to people they called witches.
Witches, yeah.
But as time went on...
The Inquisition.
Yeah, the Inquisition, yes, exactly that period, the Crusades. So as time went on and the world has brightened up through education and knowledge, why is it that it's only in our part of the world that this concept still remains, that there are some supernatural beings that can come and in the night cause you harm? Why is it that it's no more present in the countries that have progressed through secularism? Why is it not there? It's just to tell us that it's out of ignorance and out of the personal benefits of some of our, in the hierarchy, top the ranks who've got a little knowledge. They are just trying to use that knowledge in the negative senses, getting out the wealth of the poor.
So, but why do you think that's consistently for generations, even in our part of the world, people believe so much in the existence of witchcraft and dwarfs and jinns and all of these supernatural forces that you can manipulate, control, to do things for you, to give you wealth, to give you maybe more women, to harm people that you don't like? I mean, if there's nothing to it, people will be proven wrong. But why is it that consistently people feel that there is power that they can manipulate to their benefit, and they've been doing it, and they feel like they are succeeding because of those powers?
The thing is, Mohammed Sahab, when you go deep into this, you realize that the secret recipe behind the success of this kind of concept is that the layman is not allowed to speak on such topics.
Okay.
You are not allowed to bring up your arguments. This kind of topics are not open to discussion. I remember that once I was talking to a friend who is in one of these Arab countries.
Okay.
So this topic of jinn came up, and he immediately said, no, we are not allowed to speak on these topics.
Okay.
Because, once a discussion starts, you start reasoning, you bring in arguments that will debunk this kind of belief. So the very simple answer that the clerics give us is, this topic is not open to discussion. You don't have the right, you don't have the knowledge to talk about them. And if you do, then they threaten you that they would come and harm you. So these kind of topics have been shut down. They're not allowed to be spoken about. And arguments are not allowed to be brought in. They don't tolerate any question on such topic. And this is the secret recipe that they have.
Well, it's a very important question, viewers, because especially in our part of the world, in Africa, people believe in all sorts of supernatural forces, witches, wizards, jinns and dwarfs that people can manipulate to affect you. People even go the way to go and see so-called, in Ghana today, we have people in quote malams who are not supposed to actually be that, who are dabbling in all kinds of, sorcery and all of that. But yeah.
I would just like to come in. When you brought up this topic of malam, I remember I went somewhere,
Yeah.
I was sent, and this concept came up that he used to wash the verses of the Holy Quran and give people to put in their necks. And some,
yeah, it's very common.
So that was my only question. I asked him that the people you are giving this, the lives of those people might be at threat, but it's not more than the threat that was posed to the lives of the companions of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. The Holy Prophet never washed any verse. He just told them that pray to Allah the Almighty, and nor did he collect any money from them to tell them the prayers. So this was my question I posed to him, and he was like, he had no answer to this question. And that is how it is, that it is just a new way that people have devised to.
The important is that Allah has not imposed any conditions on us to communicate with Him. We can pray to Him every day, the 5 daily prayers, our tahajjud. We have a direct path and link to Allah. So whatever you want, you can pray to Allah for it, and you do not need to resort to all sort of charms and sorceries and all of that. And if you also believe that these things do not exist and that they cannot harm you, they will not harm you because you are on the path of Allah. Movi, thank you very much for this answer. Let's go for our next and our last actually question for today.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Ibrahim Jima and I'm from Ghana. My question is, why do Ahmadis think that the second advent of Hazrat Isa alayhi salatu wasalam is Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad of Qadian?
Very important question. One of the core, central ideas of Islam Ahmadiyya. Why do we believe that the promised Messiah fulfills the second coming of Jesus Christ?
When we study contemporary religions, be it Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and even the Hindu religion, we find this concept that in the latter days there will be the coming of this Messiah. Every religion believes that the founder of their religion, or a person who has been prophesied by their founder, will come. The Christians hold the belief that Jesus alayhi salam would come. The Muslims believe the Mahdi, Masih will come. The Buddhists believe the Buddha will come again. The Hindus believe Krishna will come again. So there's this concept in every religion that once the world is getting to an end, the latter days, there will be this Messiah every religion is expecting. But the question was very pertinent to Jesus, and the belief of coming of Jesus is held in two religions, Islam and Christianity. So let's just very narrowly go through these, considering the time that we've got at our disposal. So even in English languages, which is very distinct from Arabic or Hebrew or Greek, we have some examples. Like if I tell a person that this boy is a shining star, it never means that that boy has become a star living in the celestial world. That's not a meaning. It means he's got that light in him. He's got that, the manifestation of a star can be found in that person. If I give an example that this lake is a mirror, it just means that it is as calm and it's giving a reflection. It's as simple as that. These metaphors are in every language. We find in the Old Testament, the last message of the Old Testament in Malachi, that the Jews were prophesied that the Elijah would come from the heavens to them before the coming of the Messiah. So time passed and the Jews continued waiting for the descent of Elijah from the heavens. But no Elijah descended from the heavens, and Christ the Messiah came. So they told him that,
through birth.
Through birth, yes.
Yeah.
So they came to him and they were asking questions that we have been told in our scriptures in Malachi chapter 4, that the Messiah would come, but before his coming would come Elijah from the heavens. And we haven't seen any Elijah descending from the heavens. So what are you talking about? What kind of Messiah can you be? So Jesus Christ told them that if you want to believe Elijah, then Elijah has indeed come, and he is in the person of John the Baptist. So though the promise of Elijah was given to them, that he would descend from the heavens, but Christ came, and he says in Matthew 11:14, that if you want to know who Elijah is, then it's John the Baptist. He is the Elijah who was to come. But the Jews did not accept what Jesus told them. And to this day, they stand at the Wailing Wall and they cry, waiting for Elijah to descend from the heavens.
Before they believe that a Mahdi, a Messiah will now come.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in Luke chapter 1 verse 17, Jesus said, and he will go unto before the Lord in the spirit and power of Elijah. So these were the two things that made John the Baptist look like Elijah, that he was in the power and in the spirit of Elijah. So when these terminologies are used in the religious world, that he would come, Elijah would come to you, it was just to mean that somebody in the power and spirit of Elijah would come. But very unfortunately, the Jews rejected Elijah, the second coming of Elijah in the person of John the Baptist, and they also rejected Jesus Christ. Then what happens is, the Christians were told between the lines, just as the promise of Elijah was given to the Jews, that he would descend from the heavens. Jesus Christ, it is written about him that he would descend from the heavens as well. But between the lines, Jesus gave us some clues on how we should be expecting his coming as well. So he says in Matthew chapter 23 verse 39 that, for I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Very clear, but it's between the lines. You know, religion is not clear cut. It is hints, so you've got to link the chains. So Jesus is saying, you're not going to see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. He is giving a slight link that you are not going to see me again. Then he says in Revelation chapter 3 verse 12 that I will make a pillar in the temple of my God. Never again will they leave it. I will write on them the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, the new Jerusalem, which is coming down out from the heavens. And I will also write on them my new name. A new Jerusalem and a new name. It's very clear that it's clues that just as Elijah did not come from the heavens as the Jews expected, so I am telling you I will come from the heavens, but keep in mind that I will come with a new name in the new Jerusalem, and you will not see me again. These are clear-cut indications, just as in the case of Elijah, that you will not see me again. You've got to wait for that person who would come in my spirit and in my power, just as John the Baptist came in the spirit and power of Elijah. And then when we talk about the Muslims, they too, they are expecting the arrival of the Jesus Christ from the heavens. And the Holy Quran says about this, Inna arsalna ilaykum rasulan shahidan alaykum kama arsalna ila fir'auna rasula, that we have sent to you a Rasul, just as we sent to the people of Bani Israel a Rasul, referring to Musa alayhi salam. And then Islam talks about the successorship of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam, which ended with Isa alayhi salam. So this is an indication that just as Moses was succeeded by the Messiah, Jesus Christ, so will the Holy Prophet ﷺ be succeeded by the Messiah. And then the Holy Prophet ﷺ said, "In lan tahliku umma ana fi awwaliha wal Masih ibn Maryam fi akhiriha," that I am in the beginning of my nation and Jesus Christ is in the end of my nation, meaning the Muslims. But not ending there, the Holy Prophet gave us the warning that my nation, the Muslims, would become like the Jews. And the Holy Prophet said, لَيَأْتِيَنَّ عَلَىٰ أُمَّتِي مَا أَتَى عَلَىٰ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ حَزْوَ النَّعْلِ بِالنَّعْلِ, that my nation will start resembling the Jews, just as one foot of the same pair resembles the other one. That means there will be so much similarities. And what was the mistake the Jews made? The Jews, the mistake they made was they expected the Elijah to descend from the heavens, and they did not accept the one who was sent. In the same way, the Muslims are making this mistake, as the Holy Prophet ﷺ warned us, he admonished us that do not make the mistakes the Jews have made. But we have, this notion is still there that Jesus Christ will descend from the heavens, as Elijah was being expected from the heavens by the Jews. And the reason why the belief, so the Muslims expect the Messiah from the heavens, is because of one narration of the Holy Prophet ﷺ in Bukhari, the narration of the Holy Prophet ﷺ. What the Holy Prophet ﷺ said there is, كَيْفَ أَنْتُمْ إِذَا نَزَلَ إِيسَى بْنَ مَرْيَمَ فِيكُمْ, what will be your states when the Messiah would descend into you people? So they make the inference that he would descend
Physical
from the
descent.
heavens.
Okay.
But there's no mention of heavens. What the Holy Prophet ﷺ said is, what will be your state when Jesus descends into you people? That's as simple as that. But this word nuzul, which they take to be from the heavens, when we study the Holy Quran, we realize that it means blessings. Whenever Allah the Almighty gives mankind a favor, He uses the word descend. Like the example, the Holy Quran says, وَأَنزَلَ لَكُمْ مِنَ الْأَنْعَامِ, that we have descended for you cattle. Cattle don't descend from the heavens. It's just a way of telling you that it is from myself. I have given you cattle. It's the word nuzul is used. And then the Holy Quran says, Ya bani Adam qad anzalna alaykum libasan, we have descended for you clothings. Clothings don't come from heaven, but it's just a way to show that it is a blessing from me. So this word was used by the Holy Prophet ﷺ just to show that the coming of the Messiah is going to be a blessing for you. Just like how the cattle are a blessing for you, clothing is a blessing for you. So it was as simple as this. But the Muslims took it literally, just as the Jews took the coming of Elijah literally. And the Holy Prophet admonished us that do not make the mistake the Jews had made. But we have gone astray taking this. On one side, the Holy Prophet ﷺ is saying that Jesus will descend upon you. And he is saying in another place that Imamukum minkum, he is going to be an Imam from among your own people. So put these two things in the weighing scale and you would realize that they are not contrary. It is just to show that he would be from you, but he is a blessing in disguise for you people, so accept him. Then comes the question, as I mentioned in the beginning, that metaphors are used. I gave the example of the boy, this boy is a shining star. So then the question is, what were the similarities between Jesus Christ and the promised Messiah alayhi salam? Because Elijah and John the Baptist had the similarities. That is why he was called Elijah. So what is the similarities? The promised Messiah alayhi salam himself in his book Tazkiratu Shahadatain has mentioned many examples, many similarities between him and Jesus Christ. And the first one he says is that when the first advent of Jesus Christ took place, the Jews had no authority. They were under the rule of the Romans. In the same way, when the promised Messiah ﷺ made his arrival, the Muslims, especially in his land, subcontinent India, they were under the rule of a foreign power.
Okay, so in this case, the Muslims were also not were under the authority of another power, right?
Just as the Jews were under the authority of the Romans.
Or the Romans, okay.
And then another similarity between the two is that both postponed war. We have the examples of Jesus and how peaceful his message was, that do not wage war. The same was the message of the promised Messiah alayhi salam. And above all, both of them were born 14 centuries after the law-bearing prophet of their nation. Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, Jesus Christ, was born 14 centuries after Musa alayhi salam. And the promised Messiah alayhi salam was born 14 centuries after the arrival of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this has been taken up by the promised Messiah alayhi salam in his book Tazkiratu Shahadatain. We cannot take all of them because of the shortage of time. So I would entreat that the members of the community and all those who seek truth should read this book.
And the title of the book again?
Tazkiratu Shahadatain, which is in the 20th volume of Ruhani Khazain.
Is there like an English translation of the title?
Yeah, it's translated as The Account of the Martyrdoms.
The Account of the Martyrdoms. And is the book available in English like this?
Yeah, it is available in English.
Okay. And where can they find a copy?
We have our website, alislam.org.
Okay.
You can find it there. Or we have our missions in every country. You can visit any of them for more information and even for the book. It's in the 20th volume. So but now, because of the ease of the internet, it's
available.
Yeah.
So alislam.org, just go to the website, the official website of Islam Ahmadiyyat. If you don't remember Al-Islam, just type Islam Ahmadiyyat in Google. Our website will come up. Look for the Promised Messiah. His books will be there. The Account of the Martyrdom and several other information. But maybe we should just briefly, tell us why we Ahmadis believe that the Promised Messiah is indeed the Imam Mahdi.
So you see that we are not expecting the arrival of Jesus Christ or the Mahdi from the heavens. We've mentioned that
there's no physical moment where the trumpet will blow and the heavens will open and a being will come down.
Yeah, because when we read the Bible, 2 Peter chapter 3 verse 10, Jesus said that I would come like a thief in the night, meaning that do not look for me from the heavens.
From any dramatic events.
You've got to look at what the events of the nature of the events of that age, what are folding. For example, in the 24th chapter of Matthew, Jesus Christ mentioned that whenever you see a lot of earthquakes, when you see famine, when you see that nations are fighting against nations and kingdoms against kingdoms, know that it's my time. But do not expect me from the heavens, because I would come like a thief in the night. When all these wars started, famine, earthquakes, that was in the late 18th century. And that is the exact time the promised Messiah Islam made his arrival. It is very notable to mention that in that era, so many Christian missionaries had prophesied that the Mahdi, Jesus Christ, is going to come latest by the end of the 18th century, and then 19th century, and 20th century, and now they keep on postponing the dates because all the events have unfolded. Whatever Jesus Christ mentioned has come to pass. But just as the Jews made the mistake that everything had unfolded, but the only thing was the arrival of Elijah from the heavens, which never happened. The same is the case with the Christians, that everything has unfolded, but still we are waiting for Jesus Christ.
So the first justification is that the era in which the Imam Mahdi will come, we have lived through and we are living through that era.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Okay.
And the second thing is that, for example, if I claim that I have been sent by a specific government, I use the name of that government, while in fact I have not been sent by the government, within days I would be arrested and be behind bars. So how is it that a person comes to this world, he claims that I have been sent by God, I am the Messiah, he makes so many prophecies that my God has told me this, my Lord has told me this, on hundreds of prophecies, thousands of them, but not once has Allah the Almighty held him accountable. Rather, He has helped him on every stage, He has fulfilled every pronouncement of His. So if this Messiah, who claims to be the Messiah, was not from Him, God the Almighty should have held him accountable, just like how every government, which is not as powerful as God is, holds accountable anyone who lies on His name. And in Deuteronomy, this has mentioned that anyone who lies on the name of God will be arrested by God Himself. A person claims to be the Mahdi, Messiah, Jesus Christ, but God Almighty has only helped him.
Viewers, this is just to give you, some summary of it, but the justifications for the coming of the Mahdi are extensive. If you want to know more information, especially if you are watching this program and you're not an Ahmadi or you're not even a Muslim and you want to know why we believe that Jesus Christ will not descend from the heaven physically, because in the history of humanity, in the history of God's revelation to humanity, there hasn't been an instance where a prophet has come from heaven with his flesh and blood in a dramatic moment. They all come naturally through the laws of birth that Allah Himself has ordained. You can visit alislam.org, type Islam Ahmadiyyat in your Google browser. There's uncountable information about the coming of the Mahdi, and we entreat you to seek knowledge for yourself and be enlightened so that you be among Allah's chosen Jamaat of this age. Thank you very much and for another edition of Your Questions Movie. Thank you very much. You've been very, succinct and detailed in your answers, and we really appreciate it. Allah continue to bless you with knowledge. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.